What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, my name is Kelvin Sowa and I'm on a mission to help you understand how to build mobile applications with React Native. In the previous episode, we talked about what React Native is, why it matters, and we got a quick taste of what is coming next. In this episode, we are going to get your development environment fully set up so that you can start building apps like a pro. Now, when it comes to building apps with React Native, we have a few options available to us. You can either use an Android emulator or an iOS emulator. But for this tutorial, you're going to be using Expo Go, which is one of the quickest ways to get started building apps with React Native. And to do this, you can simply download the Expo Go app from Play Store or App Store. And that is going to help us test and run our apps. And I'm going to walk you through how you can do that in this episode. I, on the other hand, will be using an iOS emulator on my Mac, just so I can show you everything on the screen, so I wouldn't have to be juggling around with my phone. Now, before we dive in, I'd like to mention that to get the most out of this series, we're going to need some foundational knowledge of JavaScript. Things like variables, arrays, functions, and loops. Also, knowing some basic React concepts like components and props is a big plus. But don't worry if you are a bit rusty, I've got a refresher video on my channel that will walk you through the basics. Feel free to check that out first if you need a quick brush up before continuing. I'm going to drop a link to that video down in the description, and it should also show up somewhere at the top in a moment. Now, I know environment setup isn't always the most exciting part of the process, but it is one of the most important. Once everything is set up properly, everything else becomes way easier and way smoother. We are doing this right from the start so that you can stay focused on learning how to build real apps. Now, if this sounds interesting, do want to leave a thumbs up on this video and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and feel free to share this video as well. And let's get right into setting up our development environment. Okay, so I am here on the React Native official website, and you can find it on reactnative.dev. And over here, you can just read a brief overview of the React Native itself. And here you can clearly see the platforms that are supported with React Native. You can see Android, we have iOS, and even on the web. And over here too, you can see a simple snippet of code from React Native. Okay, so here is a functional component where you can see these view tags and also this text tag. If you've used React before, this should look familiar to you, but instead of having div tags or p tags here, we have views and then text. Now, in this course, like I said, we'll be diving deep into React Native, and we'll be talking a lot more about these components and many more. We'll be touching on how we can use them and how we can build apps with these components from React Native. And over here, there's also a text here saying written in JavaScript, rendered with native code. And this is one key thing about React Native. You basically write your code once, and then your code base is able to apply and then use the core native features from the various platforms. So if the app that you've built on React Native is opened on an Android device, the app is going to look and feel like an Android app. And if it's opened on an iOS device, the app is going to look and feel like an iOS device. Now, this is a very important feature when it comes to React Native. And this is why a lot of developers and organizations are drifting towards cross-platform applications with React Native. Good. Now, when you come to the native development, you can clearly see how things work here. We'll be looking at where these views is even coming from. As you can see, there is this image view here, which holds the image, and then we have the text and scroll view and so on. We'll be talking a lot more about these components as we move on. And also with React Native, you can work with frameworks. And one of the frameworks that has gained a lot of popularity today is Expo. Now, Expo is a framework, a React Native framework that actually makes building applications with React Native a lot easier. Now, they have some cool features like the file-based routing and so on, which we'll be delving deep into them in this course. So stay with me, stick with me across this video and the subsequent videos to get to know how you can actually use Expo to build mobile applications. All right, and also over here, you can see some companies, some huge companies that actually use React Native in their apps. We have Facebook, which is Meta, which is the original creators of React Native. So, I mean, these are some applications that well-known applications that actually make use of React Native in their application. Okay, great. So at this point, we can just get started here and get to see more about React Native. Now, over here, you get to see a brief description about React Native. I mean, it allows developers who know React to create native apps, basically. That's just a brief overview of React Native. And also over here, you can see some information here saying you can also use React Native without a framework. However, we found that most developers benefit from using a React Native framework like Expo. This is very true. Most developers are really drifting towards the use of Expo because it has a lot of features that makes life easy for you as the developer. And we'll be delving deep into it and seeing how we can benefit from Expo. Great. Now, to create a new React Native app with Expo, you can simply run this command and it's going to bootstrap a new project for you. But let's head over to the official Expo documentation and let's see what we have over there. So you can just press the continue with Expo to see more over there. Okay, great. Over here, you get to see the environment setup documentation here. So, I mean, to begin writing your code with Expo, you need to set up your environment. You need to make sure that everything is set up in a way where you can start writing your application or start building your apps. Now, you can see there's a question here saying, where would you like to develop? You have these options that you can choose from. You have Android device, iOS device, Android emulator, or iOS simulator. So depending on which device you are going to be using, you select that device here and I'm going to see a description of how you can set up your environment. So in my case, I'm going to be using an iOS simulator. So I'm going to select the iOS simulator. Now, if you don't have an iOS simulator setup or even an Android emulator setup, you can go with an Android device or an iOS device, depending on what device that you are having. So assuming you have an Android device, you can simply select the Android device. Once you select it, you can now continue with the documentation. Or if you have an iOS device, you just select the iOS device and then you can also follow the documentation as it goes on. So let's say you are using an iOS device, right? Now, how would you like to develop? With the Expo Go build or the development build? We wouldn't be going into the development build for now, but then we'll be using the Expo Go because it's a quick way to get started with Expo. Now with the Expo Go, you're going to need to install the Expo Go app, right? You're going to need to install the Expo Go app. If you scan this QR code, it's going to take you to the various store, whether Play Store or App Store, and then you are going to get the Expo Go app. Or basically, you can just open Play Store or App Store and then type in Expo Go in the search bar. You should see it there and then install the app because that's what you are going to use if you are using an iOS device. Now, once you've installed the Expo Go app, you can now get started with it. Okay, now if you want to set up an Android emulator or an iOS simulator, you can also do same. Let's say you want to set up an iOS simulator. Now to set up an iOS simulator, there are prerequisites where you need to have a MacBook. You need to have a MacBook that supports iOS simulators. So you can select it and then you're going to see the documentation for that. See, now that you've selected it, the documentation gets changed, right? Where you can see the step-by-step ways to set up your iOS simulator. It's pretty straightforward, nothing too difficult. You can just follow the documentation over here and then install and set things up. You can basically install Xcode and then install the command line tools and so on. And then same thing for the Android. Once you select the Android, if you want the Android emulator, the same documentation, you get the documentation for that as well, where you simply download and install Android Studio, follow the steps, the systematic steps provided over here, and then you're going to set up your Android emulator over here. Okay, so depending on your situation, on the devices that you have at hand, whether you want to use the device, a physical device or an emulator, you just follow the documentation provided by Expo, and it's very simple to follow, and you can set that environment up. Okay, now to move on, let's move on to the next thing, which is start developing. All right, so to start developing, basically this is the folder structure that you are seeing here. And you can see basically once you have installed the Expo Bootstrap projects, you basically follow this structure and you are going to see something like this. Okay. So let's head over to create a project over here, and then we can go ahead and then create a new project. So to create a new project, you simply run this command npx create expo app latest, and you can notice here that there is this thing. You can choose a different template by adding the dash template option. Now let's press on it and let's see these template options that they're talking about. Now over here, you can see the templates over here. We have the default one where the description is default template designed to build multi-screen apps, includes recommended tools such as Expo CLI, Expo router library, and TypeScript configuration enabled, suitable for most apps. Now we'll be going with the default ones because we'll be using the core features of Expo, which they just mentioned over here. They're recommended tools for building applications with Expo. So we have the Expo router library already set up and with TypeScript for us. So we'll be delving deep into these things and how they work as well. And the other options here, we have the blank, where it basically installs a blank project for you, not too much codes in it, basically a blank startup project for you to use. Also, we have the blank with TypeScript, and also we have some other options here as well. So we'll be focusing more on the default one. All right, so let's copy this command, right? Copy this command. Now I'll be using VS Code as my development tool. I'm going to be using VS Code. If you want to use the same tool, you can basically come to code.visualstudio.com and download the software for your device. It's free, so you can basically just download and then install it on your laptop, and then you can use it. All right, so make sure you've copied this command npx expo -app at latest, and then head over to your desktop and open a new terminal, right? So I've opened a new terminal over here. Let me make sure, first of all, create a folder. Let me create a folder. I have this YT folder here. I'm going to create a new folder over here, and I'm going to call it React Native, which is the RN course, like this. And then I'm going to open this folder in a new terminal. Okay, I'm going to open this folder and let me close the old one. And then I can open this folder. Now I'm going to paste in the command that I copied on the Expo page and then add the template flag like this. Now this should initiate the setup for me. Okay, good. So here you see they're asking us to choose a template, right? So these are the templates we talked about earlier, the default, the blank with TypeScript, navigation, and then blank bare. So we are going to go with the default one over here. So hit enter, and then we are being asked to name the app. We can just press dot because we want it to create the app inside the current directory. Okay, so it's going to do that. And once it's done, it's going to install the necessary dependencies for us. Good. So I think the installation has bumped into some errors here, probably some network errors. We can resolve that real quick. But before that, let's get into the app on VS Code by doing code dot, or basically just make sure you open the project in VS Code. Make sure it's opened. So as you can see here, we have these files already provided for us since we bootstrapped our project with Create Expo app. As you can see here, we have these files and we'll be looking into them. Now let me try and run the npm install again. Now if you are using npm, you can simply use npm or yarn depending on which manager you are using, package manager you are using. So I'll be using yarn, or you can choose to use npm. So I'm going to use yarn install to install the packages. Now you might not need to do this. I'm only doing this because when I was bootstrapping the project, for some reason the packages didn't install, so that is why I'm running the yarn install. One thing also that you need to do is to make sure that you have Node.js installed. Okay, so to check if you have Node.js installed inside your terminal, you can just do node-v to check the version. Now, if you see, this is the version of Node that I'm using, 24.2.0, which means I've already installed Node. Now, if you haven't installed Node, you can basically head over to their website, which is nodejs.org, I think. And then it should bring you to their website where you can simply download and then get the Node.js, the LTS version for your device, basically. So make sure you've downloaded Node.js. Okay, good. So at this point, you can clearly see that it has installed the packages for me. Now let's go through these files and then folders that we have here to see what's going on here. Now you can see we have the package.json here. This is basically the file which contains the various dependencies that have been installed in our app. You can see we have Expo haptics, we have Expo Blur, and then we have Expo router as well, which is going to be the library that we are, or the dependency that we're going to be using to manage our routing inside this Expo app. Also, we have this app.json file which holds all the configuration for our mobile application. Now this name is going to be the name of our app. You can change the name to whatever you want. We have the flag, the version, the orientation. Is it going to be portrait or landscape? You can choose or decide over here. And also, if you have an image for the app icon, you can simply provide the route or the location of that image. So for the default one, it's inside the assets, images, and then icon.png. If you have a different image, you can basically place it there and then change the name over here. Now we have the scheme over here too for deep linking. We have some, user interface style, which is on automatic, new architecture enabled, and so on. So these are configurations that we can actually use to make our app look and feel a certain type of way. Okay, so that's the app.json. And then we have a script here. We'll be using this script in a moment. And also we have hooks, constants, and so on, and some components here, right? Now, because we use the default template, it provided us with all of these boilerplate codes that is being provided over here. Okay, and then we have this app folder. Now this app folder is going to be the main folder that we are going to be working in most, right? We have the layout over here, and with this layout, we have the not found file over here, and also we have this tabs screen over here. Now, we are also going to be looking at how to create button tabs and so on. So this is basically the file structure that was created for us by Expo once we bootstrap with the default templates. So let's start the app to see what the output of this boilerplate code is. So to start the app, you simply enter npx expo start like this. All right, good. So once you enter npx expo start, you should see something like this. So if you are using Expo Go, as you can see here, using Expo Go, the only thing you need to do is on your mobile device, make sure you've installed the Expo Go app and then scan this QR code. So if for iOS, you can simply open the camera app and then scan this QR code. It's going to open the Expo Go app for you. And then it's going to start up this project. Okay, so that's for if you are using the Expo Go app. But I am going to be using the iOS simulator. So I'm going to press I, and it's going to open this app on an iOS simulator for me. So as you can see here, it is setting it up and then it's getting started on this iOS simulator that I have here. And I'm using an iPhone 16 Pro simulator for this course. So as you can see, building the JavaScript bundle, it's getting things started. Okay, awesome. So this is basically the output of the boilerplate code that was provided to us by React Native Expo. And this is the output basically. We have these two bottom tabs here, the home and then the explore tab here, like this, basically. Now, this is cool and all, but then we'd like to start afresh, right? We'd like to start afresh. We'd like to clear most of these things because we want to build these things. We want to build our way up. We want to understand how all of these things works, right? We want to understand how all of these things works. So to clear this thing, we are going to run the script here. Okay, we are going to run the script here, and it's going to take care of clearing all the boilerplate code for us. So let me open a new terminal here. And then I'm going to say node. And then the script you want to run is inside the script, and the name is reset project. So I'm going to say node scripts / reset project, like so. And then I'm going to hit enter. So once you hit enter, you get notified with this saying, do you want to move existing files to app example instead of deleting them? I'm going to say no, because I want it to actually delete everything. Okay, so I'm going to press N, and it's going to clear everything there for us. So as you can see, it has cleared all the boilerplate code for us, and our plate is clean. Now we can start everything afresh. Okay, awesome. Now let's see the output now. So you can see, instead of having that bottom tabs and all that boilerplate code, now everything is gone, and this is the only thing that we have here. And you can see inside the app folder, we only have this index.tsx file, and then we have this layout.tsx. Okay, so we'll be talking more about what this layout is, what this tag even is, and how we can actually use it. And as you can see, this tag is coming from Expo router. We're going to see how we can actually use the Expo router and create the tags for our various routes. And also in the index here, this is basically the entry point of our app. The first thing that the user is going to see if the user enters the app is inside this index. So if I just clear this thing here and I say, hello, welcome to Tech Ocean, make sure you subscribe. You are going to see the output on the, we are going to see this output on the iOS device, right? We're going to see this output on the iOS device. So anything at all I type is going to be outputted over there. So if I add a new text tag here and I say, hello world, you should also see it here. All right, so you can see some things over here. We have this view tag, and then we have this style here, flex one, justify content center, align item center, and we have this text here as well. In the subsequent episodes or lessons, we are going to see and dive deep into these components and see how they actually work. Okay, awesome. So this is basically for you to set up the environment, your development environment. And from here on, you are now going to get into writing real React Native code and then getting started with your journey as a mobile applications developer. Now, what we are going to do now is to push this code to GitHub and then move everything on Git, basically. So we're going to create a new branch, okay? I'm going to, first of all, let's commit it. Okay, let's commit this. And then we are going to say initial commit. You can either use the VS Code inbuilt source control, or you can basically type the command. Now, if you want to type the command in the terminal, you can just do so by opening a new terminal, and then you're going to say git add dot, and then you can do git commit, then add a message and call it initial commit, like this. Make sure it's in quotes as I've done it here, and then it's going to commit all the changes. And now it's just committed on our local Git. Now, if you want to commit it to a remote Git repository on GitHub, you can also configure that. So to do that, let me open my GitHub. All right, so this is my GitHub account, Kelvin. So my username is K. You can leave a follow if you would want to. And then to create a new repository, you can come to repositories here, and then you press the new button over here to create a new repository. Now you can name it whatever you want. I'm going to call it React Native course, like this. Okay, let me just use caps for all, like this. And then I'm going to leave it at public, and you can go ahead and then create a new repository. All right, so once it gets created, you get this page here like this. I'm going to copy this URL because that's what I'm going to use as the origin. Okay, so to add the origin, simply do git remote add origin, and then you paste in the link over there like so. And then the next thing, or you can even simply copy everything here and then paste it in the command. So the first command is what we've already typed over here. The next one is making sure it's on main, and then we push it. We set the main as the upstream. Okay, so we hit enter. Good. So we are getting this error, remote origin already exists, because we've already created a remote origin. So you can even ignore. And then once you push it, you should see the changes over here. So we refresh the page, you can see that everything has been uploaded perfectly. All right, so this is going to be our main branch. Now let's create a new branch from the main branch, and we're going to call it, let's do git checkout B for the new branch, and we're going to call it lesson 1, like this. So this is basically lesson 1, where we set up the development environment. Okay, so the branch has been created. Let's push it to GitHub. And simply press the publish branch, and it's going to push that branch to GitHub. Now when we refresh the page and then we press over here, you can see the lesson 1 branch. Okay, now this is basically going to be the structure we're going to be following. At the end of every lesson, we're going to create a new branch, and then we push the branch to GitHub and make sure that everything is there, so that if you want to come back to any lesson, you can simply change your branch to that lesson, and then you can see the code changes over there systematically. Okay, so this is going to be the end of today's lesson. Basically, at this point, hopefully you have set up the development environment for your React Native lesson or your React Native course, and then we can move on to more and newer concepts with React Native. Okay, so if this video has been helpful, make sure to leave a like on this video, smash the subscribe button, and then leave your thoughts in the comment section. If in case you are facing any blockages too, you can also drop them in the comment section, and I'll try my best to respond to them and be of assistance to you. And also, you can share this video as well. Now, these interactions, I'm going to be very grateful to them very much, because it's going to make these videos available or help the YouTube algorithm to recommend these videos to a wider audience, which is going to be very helpful, and I'm going to be very happy and grateful about that as well. Thank you very much for staying with me to this point, and catch you in the next video.